travel is so beneficial in such a wide variety of ways. And people, these experts, no matter what field they're in, have a passion for travel and understand how it has impacted them. And they want to combine that. And many have been doing it. And when they come into the network, they're like, you know what? You finally gave me clarity. Like I always just like told people to travel in my work, but I never like made it a part of actually what I do. And they're like, this makes total sense.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today we have with us author, speaker, CEO and founder of the Travel Coach Network, Sahara Rose. Welcome to the show, Sahara.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking time out to come on to talk about travel coaching, because you're actually the founder of Travel Coach Network. And the thing is, I've never heard about travel coaching, or as much as I probably would expect to hear about, seeing that I travel quite a bit, and it was almost like I first heard about it in the recent few months. And then I was telling you, I also got quite a few requests from travel coaches for the podcast, which I was quite surprised. And then when I was looking into their stories, it seems that it's pretty interesting in the sense of what they are doing, because apparently travel coaching is a very big space, and each travel coach actually can be addressing a very different area, right? It can be talking about elderly travel, and I believe you yourself, you focus more on wellness travel and stuff like that, right? So I got really interested to find out more about travel coaching. And so today I'm here to learn from you about what this is.
Okay.
Before we begin, why not let's start with an introduction of yourself first, because I know you also have a pretty interesting travel background and story yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't come from a family that traveled very much at all. I never really thought of traveling much when I was younger, and it wasn't until I joined a tourism program in my third year of university that I was like, okay, well, that has some interest because I was for a really long time struggling to figure out what direction I wanted to go in, what I was really interested in, what kind of career path I wanted. I had no idea for so long. And so I joined this program in Chicago and graduated in 2010, so 2 years later. And I had no idea. I had learned about these different jobs. I was in this big city that had so many different hospitality tourism companies I could have worked for, or I could have taken a corporate job that paid me to travel for business. And none of that really settled in my heart of what I wanted to do at 22 years old. So what I really wanted was to explore the world, to explore who I am, to explore, what kind of life I wanted to have. And so I bought a one-way ticket to Ireland, and I was planning to backpack Western Europe for a month and a half. And I thought after that, I said, well, I'll come back home and I'll, kind of quote unquote, figure out my life and get a job and be normal. And I fell in love with travel, and I kept that 1.5 months turned into a year, and then 5 years, and then 10 years. And so I wound up spending the next decade traveling to 84 countries on my own, really getting a unique perspective on the world, on people, on places, and just how beneficial travel can be. And then that journey is what inspired me to start my businesses.
It sounds like when you just graduated, travel or the ability to travel was already quite a big priority for you when you were deciding on a career path. Where do you think that came from? Because you mentioned you didn't start with a family background who always travel, right? Was it like maybe because you couldn't get it when you were younger, so the lack of it, and then so you decided that you want to do it? Or was there like something that triggered the the focus on putting travel as one of the key factors to consider?
Yeah. Again, my first 2 years of university, I had no idea I changed majors a lot of times and topics a lot of times. And I was moving, I was changing colleges coming across the country back to my home area. And I had a very short time to find the school to get into. And when I was doing research, I just saw a hospitality and tourism program, but it never crossed my mind to think about working in tourism or anything. And I just found it interesting. I had no idea what it was going to do for me. And it was when I was sitting in my one of the courses the very first day that I was really inspired. I was inspired by a lot of the foreign exchange students who were in the classroom. They were from China, they were from all over Europe, and everyone got to talk about the countries they visited. And I had only visited, I think, Canada and Mexico when I was little at the time, and I barely remember them. And I sat in awe thinking like, wow, these people have been to amazing places. And that's kind of what sparked my curiosity for travel. And after finishing that program, I really just wanted to go and see what was out there. I had no idea that I would that travel would become such a big piece of my life at all when I first started traveling.
Yeah, university exchange programs are always interesting. I reckon that is a very good way for anyone who has not traveled to basically get a taste or experience of traveling. And in my university, we always say that the exchange program is technically not about studying. You're basically just going for a semester and you're mainly focusing on having fun. As long as you pass to get the credits back, that's fine. And I myself, during my university days, was almost overseas every like summer vacation, or we have like semester breaks, and almost every break I'm off somewhere. And I think it's a very depending on the school you are from, but I reckon in the States, a lot of schools are pretty supportive of like overseas exposure, and they usually have like some sort of grants and stuff to help the
Mhm.
students offset the cost of traveling. So I think that is a very good time to take advantage of like all the support that you can get from your
Yeah.
institution to check out travel. Nice, nice. So let's talk about a bit about travel coach, right? And we are going down to a bit of a basics today because I have no idea, and I know you have a podcast that is related to travel coaching. So I was thinking if I should listen to it, but I decided that I won't listen to it so that I won't have any idea what it is, and then I can get down to the real basics of what actually is travel coaching, right? Because we know the business coaches, life coaches are very popular
Mm.
professions even within the digital nomad space. But what's a travel coach in general? Just an overview of it.
Yeah, well, when I started my wellness travel coaching business, I didn't see the words travel coach anywhere. I when I a little bit of background on why I started travel coaching and also the Travel Coach Network was because when I was traveling for those 10 years and plus around the globe, I was still trying to figure out what career path I wanted, what kind of job did I want in travel. And I heard about obviously all the different types of options that the industry says are available, like a travel agent or travel advisor or a flight attendant or working in hotels or being a blogger or writer, travel writer. None of those were of interest to me. I don't like planning and booking trips for people. I don't like writing about travel very much. I mean, not as a profession, as at least. And I I just didn't know. I didn't want to be this rise of a travel influencer. Like none of that really aligned with still my values, but I didn't know what I wanted. And although I didn't know what I wanted or did not know what I wanted, I know what I did not want to do. So that kind of eliminated things for me. So when I decided that, okay, since I can't find anything, I must create my own business. I have to start something. And like I said, I gained a really unique perspective over those years. So I got to learn what people were looking for in the industry of tourism, why people traveled, the heartfelt reasons why people traveled, how beneficial travel was on us in our lives in so many different ways, and really the human piece to travel. And I was also researching and learning about, these different studies on the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual wellness benefits of travel. And I was also learning about, and I'd heard about many other travelers and people on Facebook groups talking about leaving their 9 to 5 job to travel or quitting the corporate job to travel the world. It became like a tagline that you see all over the place. And I said, well, that must be a problem for companies. Like, how are they keeping employees if people want to quit and travel? And what are they doing about it? What are they offering people? So I started diving into all this research. And so when I decided to start my own business, and I went down to the very basics of how to start a business, and I saw these coaches pop up, business coaches, life coaches, and everything online. And I said, well, that's it. I want to be a travel coach. And again, I didn't see it anywhere. I didn't hear about it. But I'm someone who's quite unique in the sense that I don't need proof of anything if I feel like it's right in my heart. Just like I didn't need anyone to tell me, what to do exactly after university or what kind of jobs to take. I feel like if traveling, especially as a woman, I've always had to listen to my gut of, my safety and well-being and stuff. And I apply the same thing to business and my work life. So it just felt right. So I even though I had no idea it was a travel coach, I created my wellness travel coaching business and figured out what I wanted to do and who I wanted to serve. And within that, I had many people reaching out online, other travelers and travel agents and travel bloggers saying, well, what is a travel coach? That might be interesting. That might be something I want to do. And because I didn't have anywhere that I had learned about it, I couldn't send them to anything, I started the Travel Coach Network. I wanted to create a place where I could educate and guide and help others who also wanted to do more with their knowledge and passion for travel. And so as when I started the Travel Coach Network in 2019, I believe, And so over the years, travel coaching has definitely picked up quite a bit. And therefore, there's also different definitions of that as well. I've heard of many travel agents who just coach other travel agents and they call themselves a travel coach. But under the Travel Coach Network, how we define a travel coach is that it's travel coaches help travelers set specific intentions for their trip so that they use travel as a tool for their well-being, for their personal and their work growth and more. Because we all turn to travel for a different reason. It's to heal, to grow, to learn, to connect, and more. And so travel coaches, because they all have such a unique area of expertise and why what they do as a travel coach and why they're a travel coach, there's specific people that they can help who can relate to them. So it can be like moms traveling with kids, it could be someone traveling with a disability, it could be someone who is using travel to heal from a divorce, from trauma, from loss, to cope with grief. And just like a life coach tends to help people who are could relate to their life story or something they overcame, same thing with a travel coach too. So again, it's a very broad, what travel coaches can do is very broad because what the industry has always said for so long is if you love travel and you want to work in travel, you must plan and book trips or you must, work in a hotel or you must be this or that. And especially when it comes to a travel agent or advisor, it's very cookie cutter plan trips this way, you create itineraries this way, you use systems this way. But in a travel coaching sense, it's very personal. Just like travel, it's very personal. So that is what it means under the Travel Coach Network.
Got it. So there's a lot of points I want to cover, right? And I think we can generally break down the conversation into two parts. I think that in readers, different groups of readers will be interested in, one being who needs a travel coach, and then who can become a travel coach, or who should maybe consider becoming a travel coach, right? But before that, so when actually do you think that, do you guys coin the term travel coach? Was it coined by you guys, or like when do you think
No,
this thing actually started?
I remember that there was like I think the very first article I heard about was back in I think 2010. 2010, something like that, was the very first one. I think it was 2010, and it was talking about just how there's potential for travel coaching, but no one did anything with it. And then in 2012, Forbes did an article on travel coaching, and those are two articles in particular. Because honestly, like if you were to Google travel coaching now, most likely something of the Travel Coach Network will come up.
Mhm.
But I think those are two articles in particular that had been out there that I hadn't seen. And there are people who had travel coaching on the profiles on their websites. But again, everyone defined it differently. I defined it the way that I defined it within the Travel Coach Network. So
Right.
there had been the terms used before, but they meant something different. A lot of travel agents call themselves travel coaches, but they do the same exact thing as a travel agent. So they can call themselves anything they want. But within the Travel Coach Network, we have our own definition.
Got it, got it. It's interesting because, like I mentioned, so I get quoted in a lot of travel articles and stuff like that. And it used to be that, when an article quotes various travelers, you usually typically see the travel bloggers and stuff like that. And then I realized in recent years, there has been a lot more travel coaches that are quoted in the articles along with it. So I've been seeing like the same names popping out over and over again. I was like, this is interesting. So
Mhm.
let's talk about, let's go with who needs a travel coach first, because I think this is interesting because the industry is so nascent, right? So new, right? Where do you guys get the business from? Do you see more from like people approaching you guys more, or do you need to mainly do marketing more of it? Because I mean, the thing about travel coaching is that I don't know. One thing is that because I'm an experienced traveler, I always feel like it's experienced traveler when they hear about a travel coach, the first impression will be probably like, what the shit, like, why would I
Mhm.
need a coach to travel, right? I mean, like travel is just buying a ticket, flying out somewhere, right? But travel planners have the kind of the same issue. But travel planners have a selling point that I basically solve your time hassle or whatever, right? I have you plan, I have you book, so you can just, it's for the busy people maybe. But when I hear what you mentioned about travel coaching, I kind of see the angle, and I do believe there's a need for it. But how do the common people find you guys, and how do they know that they need a travel coach?
Yeah, I mean, not everyone is an avid traveler like you and I.
Yeah.
Travel planning, travel booking, travel itself, why we travel. We can get in tune with why we travel on a personal level. That all comes as second nature for people like you and I. That's not everyone. The majority of people in the world don't travel as often as we do, and don't always get to see the benefits of how travel can really truly impact you. But when it comes to who would hire a travel coach and why is that it's a lot of times it's the people who don't take the leap to go, or they've been leaving travel on the back burner, or they are don't realize that travel could possibly help them through something that they're going through. For example, I had in an article this organization who is a membership for women, widows, so women who have lost their husbands or spouses. And they reached out to me saying, I think your travel coaches would really benefit, empowering and educating and inspire our women to use travel to help cope and heal with their loss and grief. So we did a webinar on that. And so, of course, at first the women are like, are you planning our trips for us? Like, were you giving us like budget tips? Like, what are you doing? But then at the end, they realized, like, wow, like travel could really help me feel alive again. Travel can really help me feel like it's okay to be happy again. And, travel might, and why some of the reasons they felt like they couldn't would be like, well, what if I'm alone, so all these different things. So travel, think about like a travel coach as like a life coach, just like someone dealing with grief, feeling like their life is over. A travel coach is saying, hey, but there's travel. Travel can really connect you with people. It can open your eyes to different possibilities. It can give you a new spark in life. It'll give you a way to give back to others in other countries where it can build your purpose again. All these different specific things. But again, that individual has specific things that they are dealing with that the travel coach could help them use travel to help improve in their life.
That's very interesting because I think we have been across a few different episodes of the podcast. I've always kind of touched on this topic of like travel being either as an escape from like certain things or as a relief from certain things, right? And I definitely do agree that while yeah, some people take travel as an escape and they come back to the same problems, but there are also definitely others who go and see the world and it definitely helps in their problems or whatever they have had, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds as though that it takes a lot of focus on a certain area, and I'm not sure if this is right, but it seems like, for example, if I'm to deal with a client or work with a client who is experiencing a certain type of loss, like you say, maybe a death of a loved one or something, it seems like that kind of requires specialization in that I, as a travel coach, I'll probably focus a lot on this particular area rather than do a very generic area. Is that typically correct? Like, do travel coaches usually focus on a specific thing?
No, not all the time. Like, some some do. Some have like very specific niches, or areas of focus. There are many who are just women helping any woman get the confidence to travel solo and how that can benefit you. And it also doesn't have to be as like woo woo or personal as grief and loss and death and stuff like that. There are many travel coaches who also just really specialize in the travel hacking and teach people how, hey, you can take control of your travels as well. You can also learn how to, credit card hack or any of these things that the budget travelers and travel hackers like teach. Like it's a very, very broad niche because everyone has something so different to offer. And it's the one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about travel coaching is because, like I said, the industry has always said if you know something about travel, want a job in travel, you must be a travel, you must plan and book trips. You must write about travel. Like there are such limited options, but everyone knows something so different about travel and can help people in such unique ways. And that's why travel coaching is such a broader topic, really amplifying and spotlighting people's uniqueness within the travel industry.
That sounds very interesting because now that I hear you rephrase it again, I started to realize that it's a bit more of a directed focus channel delivery of information. So for example, if we take what you mentioned and we talk about, say, travel hacking or budget travel or solo female travel, because I think that actually constitute a big portion of travelers who want to travel but are afraid of solo traveling, which I've never considered because when I started traveling, I did it solo. So for me, it was always like, it seems to be the norm. But when I started looking at like travel Facebook groups and stuff like that, I realized a lot of people have the issue. They have a concern that I want to travel, but this is the first time I'm traveling alone. And it's not just for females, even for guys, some of them face the same issue, right? And certain travel bloggers cater to this niche in terms of like mass delivery of information. But it seems like a travel coach works more specific. Is a more directed channel of information and expertise sharing to a certain client. Does that sound
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's just like any other coaching industry where, like, yeah, of course, there's blogs and everything out there. You can read information on anything, but that's not the same as working with an individual, an expert themselves. And then travel coaching too, what I do in wellness travel, I don't talk about gyms, spas, yogas, or anything like yoga retreats and anything like that. What I do is more holistic in the sense that travel is very healing in such a broad way and can really help us in different areas of our lives. So I tend to work more with companies, and a big mission of mine is in corporate wellness. The people, especially in the States, many employees, in particular before the pandemic, there was a big burnout epidemic. And people did not use their vacation days, or they don't use them effectively, meaning they stayed home or they continued to work during their vacation days. And being able to show that travel can help you reset, to feel the fulfillment that you are lacking in your work life, to help you, disconnect from your workload and feel alive again for, and then prepared and ready and creative again to go back to the workplace. And this is all based on research. I didn't make any of this stuff up. I spent years researching these benefits of travel, and it's extremely beneficial for people in the corporate world taking vacations. There's so many projects and studies and everything that are out there talking about how powerful travel can be. And I felt like that's missing in the world in general, especially within companies, that talking about just how powerful travel could be. Travel's always been a very surface level type of thing, marketed, talked about, sold, experience, vacations, use a travel agent, go to a resort, all these type of things, especially in wellness too. That's a whole nother can of worms with the wellness travel that I am really aiming to help reshape. But travel is a lot deeper than that, and really a lot more powerful than what it's talked about. But as human beings, once we experience it, we understand, right? Everyone knows. Even someone who's not an avid traveler has gone on a vacation and has come back and they're like, I can't believe, like, I saw this, I met this person, I heard this story, like I tried this, I saw this beautiful landscape. Like, it changes you. And that transformation is the epitome of what travel coaching is about.
Yeah, I definitely want to dive deeper into what you do as a travel coach, because that segment that you're talking about is very interesting, in my opinion, particularly like you say in the last few years where the pandemic happened. And although like a lot of people talk about remote work, the issue for the last 2 years is that the people that went into remote work didn't actually get the benefits of remote work. As in, like, they got remote work, but they're stuck in a place, and then they got the disadvantage whereby the boss thinks you can't go anywhere. Why are you not online working? So they got that bad part, but they didn't get the part of like being able to travel or anything with it. So a lot of my friends that were in corporate kind of burned out during that time, because they realized that it's worse than before, because previously they at least had a segmentation between home and work. Now they don't even have that, and it's not like they can travel at all, right? But I want to go back a bit into the topic of like the people who needs travel coaching, or how do people start if they think they need travel coaching, right? How do they start finding a coach that works for them? Because I assume, similar to all coaching businesses, not all coaches will be suitable for you, right? It's a very personal thing, and different methods of communications and experiences from the coaches will kind of work with different clients, basically, right? So if someone is looking for a travel coach, right, like if they hear about this and then they are like, this sounds like something that I could, get some help with, how do they go about finding the right coach? And what's a good method to, say, test run, I don't know, 1 or 2 sessions with a coach or something like that?
Yeah, so that's something that I teach within the travel coach certification program for travel coaches, which is how to put yourself out there, how to spread awareness about what it is you talk about, what it is you help people with when it comes to travel, because like I said, everyone is so different. And it's really everyone's channel. It depends on who their ideal clients are. Everyone's channel of marketing is going to be different. I'm in the corporate space, so my channels are going to be different effects or a different approach than someone who speaks to college graduates. So it really depends, and that's something I work so personal and close with those in my travel coach network to figure out. But a lot of it is putting themselves out there just on social media, just like any other entrepreneur has to. And something really, really exciting that's happening is that the Travel Coach Network actually is becoming the first database for searchable for travel coaches that are be able to select and find a travel coach in your category, in your with your pain points that you're looking for.
Oh, okay. So would it, so what I can hear is that basically, if I want to start looking for a travel coach, going to your website, the Travel Coach Network is actually one of the best places
The
to
travel,
search it,
if you want to find a
right?
travel coach, the Travel Coach Network is the place to go. there are travel coaches on the website now, but like I said, the whole website's being redeveloped and relaunched shortly. But the Travel Coach Network is the place to find travel coaches of any sort, any backgrounds as well. And if anyone who's listening to this and we haven't launched yet, which again, like there's stuff on the website you'll find. It's getting revamped, but reach out and message, and I will help connect you directly with someone who is in that area of expertise for you. And again, just like I have to work with and understand the travel coaches themselves, also have just the client, the traveler themselves has to identify, what am I really looking for, and what am I struggling with, and what are my limiting, thoughts of, where do I need the support in all of it? Just like we have to assess for ourselves when we're looking for any type of coach out there. Same thing with
Right.
business. You don't just choose any business coach. You choose one who can help you in the pain points that you're currently in.
Sounds good, because I think social media, although it's a very common channel to deploy for marketing and stuff, for someone looking for a travel coach, I reckon it'd be difficult just because there's so much travel content out there and coming from all kinds of areas, right? You get the influencers, you get the bloggers, you get the people who are just posting it for leisure, and it's very hard to dig through that haystack for the particular person. So on this topic, and also transitioning, I think it's a good transition into the topic of becoming a travel coach, right? So coaching, probably within the digital nomad space, you might know that coaching is always a bit of a negative word, just because a lot of coaches have tried to use
Everyone
it.
is a coach these days.
Yeah,
Everyone
like
calls
everyone is a coach, and everyone tries to sell like their coaching services. And the running joke in the nomad space is always that because of remote work, a lot of people like to ask, okay, so how can I go into this remote work lifestyle, right? And then you get a whole bunch of people throwing in courses or like coaching. And then the joke is always that someone will come and tell you that, oh, you can become a digital nomad by becoming a digital nomad coach. So that is always the joke for coaching. But
yeah.
obviously there's
No, I totally
definitely
get
a
it.
space for this, right? So in that sense, from both angles, right, what is the best way or very filter layer that people who are looking for travel coach can use to identify quickly on if I should even make a second approach to either contacting a travel coach or just making sure I don't get scammed with like some maybe travel planner trying to come in and sell tour packages but telling you are a travel coach. And
Yeah.
also on that angle, how would someone who is a travel coach, what is a good way to position or market yourself so you don't come across as scammy or very pushy?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question. And people have to do their homework, and I say they have to do their homework because yes, there are many, like I said, there are many people out there calling themselves a travel coach. I'll message them and say, hey, what do you mean by travel coach? What do you do? Because I know who's in my network. I know who is the travel coaching within the travel coach network and who is, travel coaching on their own end. And I'll say, what do you do? And that's where a lot of times I hear them say, well, I coach travel agents. I'm like, okay, like you can call yourself, I can't tell you not to, but that's not, so for on the client side, you have to do your homework and figure it out. But that's why the Travel Coach Network makes it so much easier because we certify travel coaches. I own the only ICF accredited certification program for travel coaches around the globe. So we go through a process that it's accredited by the International Coach Federation. So we abide by all their guidelines, all their core competencies. And so that that they are getting the training that is credible as not only a coach, but also then they can apply it to how can travel help you as well. So, the basic answer is like use them through the Travel Coach Network and,
Gotcha.
yeah.
And for the marketing side of things, like if someone is a travel coach, what's the best way to kind of market? I don't think B2B, the area you're in, is as tricky because obviously a B2B connection is more formal in some sense. But what about those that are targeting B2C clients? Like how can they, stand out from either the scammers or like prove that they have the credentials or experiences to do this?
Yeah, I mean, the credentials are whether they're certified through the travel coach certification program. But because that's a process, they have to work directly with me through that too. So, I mean, anyone who has travel expertise can say that they are an expert. But the reason that the Travel Coach Network sets it apart is that we help you dive within to figure out, okay, where in your background where did this stem for travel, like love for travel stem from, and why are you looking to help people, and who are you looking to help, and why are you looking to help them? So it's a process within that. So being able to really identify when they're marketing themselves, it's their personal story. Travel, like like I said, there's so many people out there who have travel expertise or who has traveled or whatever it might be. So you can give all the tips and tricks in the world. And, that's all abundant and out there. But it's about that personal connection to travel. And that's where people, when they're showing up on social media or they're in articles, media publicity, that I really encourage them to talk about, what did travel really do for you? Because that's what clients are going to connect with. They're going to say, I felt like that. I want an outcome like that. I want an experience like that. But what we see in the tourism industry so far is just that when travel is marketed, it's all about pretty pictures and, very surface level things like look at this beautiful beach and look at this these buildings or here we have great food here, but it's like travel is much deeper than that. And so when travel coaches can talk about how travel personally has impacted them and how a place and people and the storytelling behind it, that really is going to connect people, because that's when you think of sales in general, that is why people buy something. It's an emotional connection, and travel is very emotional.
Right. And that's very insightful, because I think the other question I wanted to ask, of which I think you kind of touch on, is this, like, hearing what you say, obviously, I think it's a very interesting profession or proposition to someone who loves to travel, right? Maybe they, like you, they just graduated and they're thinking like, hey, I want to do something related to travel, but I don't really want to do an influencer kind of stuff. And this sounds like something that they could be into. And you actually touch on what are a bit of the requirements of becoming a travel coach, in the sense that this is what it kind of stems from a passion of your own experiences and helping others
Yeah.
to live through a similar experience, or like if there's a correlation between our history, it seems easier to connect, right? But if someone wants to get into this industry, right, what kind of commitment do you think they are looking at, and how do they know if this is something for them ultimately? Like, do they dive in for like 2-3 months and realize that, hey, this is not actually what I want to do, or does it take a longer time? What has been your like observation so far with the travel coaches you have?
Yeah, what I've actually observed is that people are combining travel coaching with another area of expertise. So I've had many doctors, physicians, lawyers, of course, many travel agents and advisors, life coaches, spiritual coaches, energy healers, name it, they're probably in there. Retreat, people who work in retreat, corporate coaches combine the travel coaching with what they do. And the reason being is because, like I said, travel is so beneficial in such a wide variety of ways. And people, these experts, no matter what field they're in, have a passion for travel and understand how it has impacted them. And they want to combine that. And many have been doing it. And when they come into the network, they're like, you know what? You finally gave me clarity. Like, I always just like told people to travel in my work, but I never like made it a part of actually what I do. And they're like, this makes total sense, because again, travel is just another tool. And in particular, during the pandemic, according to BBC.com, there were actually many physicians in England who were prescribing time in nature, blue and green spaces, so parks, bodies of water, gardens, to help patients with anxiety and depression. And that industry is really growing as well too. So it's really interesting. I learned just as much from those coming into my network and seeing all the possibilities, that just as much as I teach and guide them as well.
But the cross-pollination aspect that you mentioned is just really interesting, because I can definitely see how that comes into play, right? You were saying some doctors or medical professionals, it could also be like, for example, maybe they had a really tough time during the whole pandemic situation, right? And they just really need to relieve themselves some way, somehow. And travel could be one way whereby it combines the profession of like medical personnel on, hey, if you go and do this, or this could be one way for you to maybe get out of that environment that you were stuck in for the 2 years fighting the pandemic and things like that. That sounds really interesting, actually. So do you see? I definitely see cross pollination as a very viable option. Just hearing you talk about it, how? But what's the balance that you observe between, say, someone who is totally new and just exploring this particular space as a new profession, versus someone who already has a profession and is just like acquiring another skill set to top it up?
Yeah, I've definitely, there are many people who are coming in who are just brand new, and not only the travel industry, but in the coaching industry as well. And it's because, and what I always hear, the response I always get is that this is what I've been looking for. I just didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know it existed. And so how can you have a specific goal in mind to be or do something if you've never heard or seen it before? I mean, me, I know I can create something out of the blue if I feel like I don't find something, but most people need like a title or a role or something specific to work towards. But now that the terms travel coaching is getting out there, more and more people are coming into the network and they're like, this is what I've been looking for. Like, you gave me so much clarity. I've been trying to find it. So yeah, a lot of people just start off. And again, a lot of them come as travel agents who went into the travel agent industry because they felt like they had no other options. They had a love of travel and they wanted to help people. They felt like my only option was to plan and book trips. I always knew in my heart that wasn't the case. And so travel coaching gives them a whole new set of opportunities.
And speaking of which, how often do you see a travel coach also offering a travel planner or booking service? Because I can imagine that if someone don't mind doing it or loves doing it, it seems like a very easy tie-in, right? Because if someone is looking to travel, obviously they might need the, like if you're talking about how do you solo travel yourself, so someone might need the help to cope with the mental anxiety of it. But obviously having a planner to help them like kind of map out certain stuff is going to also help take off a bit of the load or the stress of like first starting to travel alone. Do you see a lot of travel coaches also tying in this service or usually separate?
No, there are many, but it's really up to the travel coach because I know myself, I don't plan and book trips. I've never been interested. I'm not a travel agent. To be able to book a trip as a travel agent, you have to go through a different set of training and accessibility to online platforms, and you have to be in a host agency. It's a different process. So yes, there are many travel agents who become travel coaches and vice versa who combine it, but it's really up to an individual travel coach. And almost all of them do something in the planning phase because you can plan a trip without booking it for someone. And that's really what travel coaching is about as well. The planning phase becomes so much more empowering and easier when you can help people dig to the roots of why they want to travel. Therefore, they can decide, do I need to go alone? Who do I travel with? What kind of destination am I looking for how long? What is my budget? Stuff like that. So travel coaches help pull those answers from within, and it makes the planning process even more clear for the person. So many of them do the travel planning. And then also a lot of them focus in retreats. They like either plan and book retreats or they, promote retreats or whatever it might be. Retreats are a big thing too, because there's a lot of spiritual retreats, wellness retreats, and travel coaches combine what they do with that as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And there's also like the other tie-in. I'm sure there are travel coaches that are yoga teachers and instructors and those like that. And I can definitely see that coming in as a huge part, especially in this space nowadays. I think the spiritual travel element is getting more and more. It's a booming
Mhm.
industry almost like, especially with the nomad hubs like Bali and stuff, Chiang Mai, all those. One of the main selling point has always been the spiritual aspect of it as well, right? Let's talk a bit about what you do for the B2B industry, right?
Mhm.
We spoke a bit about the wellness thing and definitely makes sense, but what made you decide to go into the B2B route versus the B2C route? Because hearing from you, it seems that the B2C route is obviously a more quick to start thing, right? Because you can market yourself, or you can even start with like your friends, or you can go to a social network and try to get something up and running. Whereas the B2B seems like a way harder fruit to pick, right? Because you need to set
Yep.
up, and the industry is so new. I assume that when you say it, some might even come back to you and be like, "What's a travel coach?" Right? So why this area, and how do you get started at it?
I think the simple answer is because I don't do anything easy in my life. But but honestly, my vision for making an impact as a travel coach in the world of travel and wellness, I always had a bigger vision. I like to make a change on a bigger level, and I knew that there were many companies who I wanted to help change or bring these ideas into so that they can make a positive impact on their employees or their business travelers or their travelers, their tourists. So I created a framework centered around wellness travel. And again, it's not, I don't talk about gyms, spas, yoga retreats, but some of the main areas that I do focus in are, like I mentioned, corporate wellness, but also business travel. There is a big burnout epidemic that was happening among business travelers pre-pandemic as well. And just like in the workplace, there was too. And I always thought, well, if people are, if the business travel industry is traveling for business because they see the value that travel has, when, traveling for business, going to meet someone, making connections in person, and all the purpose of why business travel exists. And there's all this information out there talking about how beneficial travel could be on our mental, physical, overall well-being. There's they're missing the mark. If people are getting so burned out, so depressed, so unhealthy on the road, when they're doing an activity like travel that has potential to do the opposite, have the opposite impact. So you'll hear the terms leisure thrown around and growing quite a bit. So where I actually got my start in the industry was in the business travel industry. And that really gave my career path a boost because I dove in, and I didn't come from a business travel background at all, not even a corporate background. And the business travel industry really gave my career a boost and helped. And because I created messaging that was unlike the wellness and travel information that others were talking about, that really put a spotlight on me and my ideas and my messages and my approach. And I, hustled my butt off, and I really started building connections. And throughout my research, I study a lot about companies. I know what they do and what they're inventing in travel and these travel booking platforms and what they're doing and these travel tech startups. I read about what they're doing and the acquisitions. I read about why and what their visions are. I really dive into all of that so I can become as well versed into speaking what I say, speaking their language. And understanding when I could see what everyone is doing. So I've spoken and I've seen a lot of newer travel booking platforms for business travel, and even leisure too. And I see their backends and I see what they're doing and creating. And when I see that, just like I do in any industry, just like I did in travel, I can see what everyone's doing and I can find the voids and shortages of what they're not doing. And that's where I make an impact. So many hotels have reached out because they want to expand upon their wellness experiences outside of the four walls of their building, like everyone else talks about. Tourism boards, destinations too, are trying to attract, quote unquote, the wellness traveler and talk about things like natural resources and community. And it's really been a journey and I'm still working on all of it as well. But I think that my vision for helping reshape how travel is viewed and used can be applied across different industries.
Yep, this is super interesting because I was going to mention about leisure because this was a term that came out in the last few years. And so my brother runs a travel agency in Singapore. So they are the number one walking tour company. And although they started off, it's a young dynamic company, and although they started off with like leisure travel, right? Ultimately, we move on to the space of a bit more of business travel under a new branding. But because we secure like certain contracts to kind of bring business travelers or schools to tour like places like Block 71, which is almost like the Silicon Valley district of Singapore. So now their arm works primarily a lot with like tech startups or the whole startup scene in Singapore. So there was always pre-COVID, there was always this notion of combining both the leisure arm and the commercial arm to bring together an experience that you were talking about. Like business travelers technically don't just want to come and just do business. I've heard about my friends going for a business trip, they stay in a 5-star hotel, but they have no time at all to enjoy anything. So they're basically just working their ass off, right? And that leads to the burnout and stress that you were talking about. And we also saw the trend whereby you mentioned hotels wanted to bring an experience outside the four walls of just their own facilities. I think that's very interesting as well. So that was definitely a direction that was going well until COVID hit. And then there was like no more business travelers. So I think but we are slowly seeing it pick up again because
Oh yeah, I would say don't give up. It's still happening. Since as we come out of the pandemic, I've traveled around the states being asked, invited as a speaker to speak for business travel and well-being and leisure. Like just because you have to look at what companies are doing and the problems that they have to overcome first. But if you can make your mark in that industry and really create and do something, and then the industry is ready and you're ready, and hey, boom, you're the first one. Like that's my mindset around it. It's going to happen. It's going to be needed. Business travel is going to pick up, and and we're seeing all of that. And wellness is at the top, and experiences and out of the norm type of experiences is happening. So, I mean, that's a really smart move too. I know many hotels are looking to partner with different types of companies and for business travelers, and travel managers are looking for partners for different experiences because leisure is on the rise too. So,
Yeah, and actually the COVID kind of was advantageous towards the company itself, because it used to be that the bigger organizations, for example, like the big hotels or like the big attractions like Sentosa in Singapore, they typically don't want to work with like the younger, smaller companies. They want those big established ones that are like 30, 40 years old, right? But of course, during the pandemic, they realized that, hey, shit, we have to just work with whoever can bring business to us. And that is how we got like more collaborations. And then they realized that, hey, actually maybe the young dynamic companies have a lot more to offer in terms of creativity and things coming up, right? So that was something that I think played to our advantage in terms of the travel company. But we were also looking at, because one of the concerns has been that a lot of companies have said post-COVID there will not be as much focus on business travel, because they realize that remote work kind of can substitute a bit of that. But we were looking at the MICE industry, which is the events and stuff. Those are hard to replace through remote, because people do want that interaction and do want that connection. So that is where we also see like a big potential of like, merging
meetings industry
conference
is
attendees. Yeah.
meetings and incentives industry is that it's reshaping as we go. There's wellness is being incorporated in different ways. Destinations are, people they're getting people outdoors for meetings and events, and yeah, that industry has so much potential as well too.
And so to tap on your experience a bit, what do you think has been the biggest friction when you try and pitch to companies about the wellness travel, and what is some good methods to overcome? Because I hear that you did mention about positioning the message, which I think is very important, because definitely agree with you that a lot of wellness companies are pushing in the direction of like spa and whatever thing, but the mental side of it is there's more and more lights being shone onto that topic in the corporate
Mhm.
space.
Yeah, I mean, the very first kind of pushback that I get is, oh, we already have a wellness initiative, or we already have a wellness coach or a wellness expert or whatever it might be, specialist. I'm like, okay, well, what are they doing? And I'll take a look. Same things. They're doing yoga sessions, meditation, they have healthy diet planning, nutritionists, whatever it might be. I'm like, that's great. That's not what I'm talking about. So this is what I'm talking about. And then I lay it down and they get it. They're all like, that makes total sense. But that's where it comes into companies have a lot on their plate. They're just trying to get employees back into the workplace or figure out their hybrid situation or remote, whatever it is. I get it. But that buys the entrepreneur time to build relationships. So my main thing is networking, making connections and building relationships. So, and being of service. And that's something I've learned from a mentor of mine, David Meltzer, is to be of service to others, which is how can I support you? How can I add value to what it is you're doing, your projects, whatever it might be. So I build these relationships with these companies and these platforms. And then when time is ready, everything is a process. No matter what you do with a company, everything is going to be a journey. So it's not a quick overnight type of set a deal. Look at these acquisitions that companies make. They have relationships with these people for years before they decide to acquire them, or they bring a new leader or corporate leader or a new executive or someone in. That person they've been talking to for years about it. So it's a process too. So understanding that journey and doing what you can do in the meantime, which is clarifying your direction and your messaging, you standing out, being of service and supportive, and being there as much as you can so they don't forget about who you are and you make a positive impact on in their mindset. And then nurturing those relationships, and when every single thing that you do in business and in life happens at the time when it's supposed to happen. So if you just trust the process and just keep on going, and you're not going to fail as long as you have consistency and you keep on going. But the main thing is to set yourself apart, be authentic in your messaging, and define things as you want to define them, not what the industry defines something as.
Okay. And did you start with this direction the moment you started in becoming a travel coach? You were like,
Yeah,
I'm going to the B2B,
started
I'm just gonna
I started the company direction, yeah. And like I said, I spent years studying about the different benefits of travel, and I've been studying about the burnout epidemic, and I was taking notes of these companies I was reading about. And the very first thing that I got involved with was I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the US, and close by is Chicago, where I used to live. And a big conference was coming to Chicago for what's called the Organization and Global Business Travel Association, GBTA. And it popped up on my LinkedIn, an ad or something, and I saw that so many of these companies I just read about even though I just started in my business and I just was doing research, they were coming. And I said, there was Airbnb was coming, Uber was coming, um, Microsoft was coming, all of these big companies were coming. And I said, I have to go to this. I have to go say who I am, even though I had no idea yet what my business structure was going to be, what my offers were, like anything. This was back in 2018. And but I printed out a little flyer with my name, and I don't even know what I said on it. And I went to every single booth that I intended to talk to, and I introduced myself, and every person was so kind and got it. And I built relationships from there. Now I've been very involved with the GVTA over the years. I've been a speaker around the states many times, and I'm on their risk management committee as well for well-being, because risk and duty of care and all of that is combining with well-being too for travel.
Got it, got it. That sounds pretty tiring to do, but definitely kudos to you to. It's really the hustle mentality of like just starting and just going to hit every booth, right? But as you have progressed, do you think it's because one of the things we look at is, or at least I look at, is always the ability to do things remotely, right? Like geographical freedom in that sense. Do you think, apart from face-to-face connection, do you think an online connection can replace that, or like hit at least 80 to 90% of that through maybe LinkedIn or other stuff? Or do you think that face-to-face is just really important?
No, I built the majority of my relationships virtually. LinkedIn has been essential to my wellness travel coaching business. That's really where my business shines on there, and where I get a lot of attention and opportunities and everything on LinkedIn. And I nurture those relationships and I stay consistent on there. And then many times I've met finally in person at different conferences and meetings and everything too, events that people have been connected with. And so I think it adds an element of you feel like you know the person more. And then when you finally meet them in person. So I am a big advocate for connecting online. I do it all the time during the pandemic. Whenever I would watch a webinar, or I was absorbing so much free information during the pandemic on all of this, and I would connect to every speaker, every company, every organizer on LinkedIn. I would just say hi, like, hey, I admired what you said on this webinar today, or and I built a lot of relationships that way.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think LinkedIn is getting, as in for the last 2 years, LinkedIn has been pretty big, as it has transformed almost from a hiring platform to really a business social network that I think it was initially intended to be, but didn't work out that way at first. But nowadays, it's definitely more towards that direction. It's a very good place for, well, it's hard for me to say because I don't put enough effort in it, to be honest. But I think like it's a very good place for content distribution, actually like setting up your, like when you're saying building your own unique messaging, that is where you can really start like pushing out content, because the organic reach is still pretty decent on that platform compared to
Oh
other
yeah,
social networks. Yeah.
definitely.
Yep. And in general, for the whole travel coaching space, where do you think the direction is heading towards?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm a little bit biased because I own the Travel Coach Network and I know the vision that I have for my platform and my community. But I ask the same question for other travel coaches that I interview on my podcast, and many of them are not in the network because they haven't, they're new to they're new to the Travel Coach Network. They've just heard of it, and so this isn't something that's only those in my network say, but what a lot of the guests on my podcast say is, it's only going to get bigger. There's travel is only going to get more personal. It's going to get valued even more. And we saw that as we come out of the pandemic and during the pandemic that, people are choosing travel and flexibility and happiness and, mental well-being over who they work for or what kind of job they have and where they live. So of course there's going to be more and more support needed as people are using travel to really intertwine into their personal lives, their work lives, their remote work, moving abroad, their relationships, and more too. And the more the travel coaching gets out there and people see the possibilities of what they can do and really wrap their head around it, they'll get inspired as well too to say, well, this is the angle I can go down as well too. Just like any newer concept, it takes time, it takes momentum, it takes clarity, but just like life coaching once too was something that only a few people did and a few people heard about, and it was kind of like, what? Who needs a life coach to teach me how to live? Like, look at the industry now, look at the companies now. Life coaches are all over the place. I see travel coaching being intertwined into so many different industries with corporate wellness, with the medical industry. It's going to be huge, and the travel agent industry and more too.
Right. And do you have a vision for the travel coach network? Apart from you obviously have a very clear vision for your travel coaching business. I think that definitely comes across very well. But for the travel coach network, is there a particular direction that you guys are
Yeah,
looking
and
at?
that's what I'm working on at the moment with our current revamp of our website is to be the world's first and only searchable database for travel coaches of a wide range of niches and suit different pain points of travelers, and really being the platform that truly personalizes a travel experience because that word has been used by every single travel,
That's a hard
and
message to
no
be
one has
unique about.
yeah, no one has really, hit it the nail on the head with that one. But be that platform that people turn to for using travel as a tool for their well-being and their lives in many ways.
Got it, got it. And nowadays, do you travel based off like what's your travel style like? Do you travel based off conferences that you want to attend, or how do you plan your trips these days?
Yeah, now I travel mostly just for business. So if I'm a speaker somewhere or there's a conference or an event that I'm attending or speaking at, so that's primarily it. I'm in the midst of wedding planning and everything too, so there's a
Oh,
lot
congrats.
going on. Thank you.
Okay, let's conclude with a few quick fire questions that is more travel related, since we actually didn't get to talk much about your travel experiences, but I still want to hear like, a bit of it. So you have been to like 84 countries and counting, right? So what's your favorite travel destination so far?
And that's a hard one. But a place that um, I really actually love Thailand and the Philippines a lot. Because I feel I went back many times to those countries, and I feel like it gave me everything I was looking for every time between people, food, budget, beaches, nature, friends, like so much stuff. So I am always drawn to Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I have to admit, Southeast Asia definitely has its own charms, although like they don't get enough credit from me because I think for me, I think for a lot of people, the grass is always greener when it's further away. You know what I mean? So you don't really want to visit like the nearby countries. But I definitely agree that Southeast Asia have their own charms. What are three of the most useful items in your travel bag apart from the laptop and mobile phone?
I carry like mini locks so that I can lock my laptop in my suitcase when I travel and I don't have to worry about it. So I always use my mini locks. Um, my collapsible water bottle that I have is pretty nifty.
Oh,
It's like a silicone roll up one. I love that thing. And then lastly, I would probably say, hmm, I don't know. I don't know the last useful. I don't travel with very many things.
so yeah, a minimalist
Um,
traveler.
yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I don't think I have a last one.
That's fine. I think both the two are good. And you have spoke a bit about the entrepreneurial side of things. It's pretty obvious that although the topic wasn't focused on that, but I definitely hear a lot from you about the hardship of starting a business that probably don't come across as hard because you have been talking about it with such like positive attitude, right? But for someone who wants to start, and I mean there are a lot of people probably listening to this podcast that wants to lead the remote lifestyle and they want to either start their own business or something like that. What is a good advice that you have from your own experience of starting out to help them in this process of like building up their businesses or their career?
Yeah, I would say, build something that is in your heart, not what you feel you're modeling after anyone else or anything else. And also, you have to assess if that's what you want because it's not easy and it takes a lot of energy and mental energy and time and everything too. And people often don't want to include or like do all that. And what can keep you afloat though is if it's something you truly believe in. So it's going to get you over and through those days that are feeling in a mental rut or you're questioning things. And that's why I can honestly say the day I started my travel coaching business and travel coach network, not one day has passed that I like question, am I doing the right thing? Because I knew in my heart that's what I wanted to do. So I would say do something from your heart.
Yeah, that's definitely important because I think a lot of people are happy with their macro life. If you're talking about it, like for example, I've always said I love what I do, but when you drill down to the nitty gritty, it's not that you love to do everything every single day. There are going to be the things that you're like, this is such a chore and everything, but you have to get through the micro pains in order to achieve, the macro happiness. And when that direction is correct, it's easier to get through the daily hustle and grind, right? All right, cool. Thanks, Sahara. And if
Thank you.
anyone and if anyone wants to become a travel coach or to find out more about travel coaching or even like just connect with you, how do they look for you?
Yeah, you can find us at thetravelcoachnetwork.com or on Facebook, Instagram at the Travel Coach Network. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn or on my website at Sahara Rose. My website, sahararose.travels.com, but on LinkedIn, Sahara Rose DeBoer.
Cool, cool. I'll drop the links in the show notes because
Perfect.
apparently I thought your name was like super unique when I first saw it. But when I started Googling Sahara Rose, there's like another person that is like pretty prominent, I think. That
Yeah,
deals with
yeah.
like
So ever since I started my business, people always I got it more back then than I do now, but people confuse me all the time with this girl she's very big in the holistic food and nutrition industry. And I'm like, nope, I'm the travel girl. She's the nutrition food girl. So yeah, I'm not sure if and I guess we kind of look similar. We have dark hair and we're girls, so I'm not sure. But yeah, you have to do Sahara Rose DeVore or do Sahara Rose and travel. Like then I'll
yeah,
pop up.
that's how I kind of try to get to your websites and stuff.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. Thank you for coming on today. And we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Rex.